We've explored 2 of the 3 mega mansions of Bramwell. The final one is the Hornwright estate. It's built higher up on the mountainside, and so it towers above all the others. We discovered the key to the Hornwright estate while exploring the headquarters for Hornwright Industrial in downtown Charleston. If you missed that video, you can watch it here. We can also find a key to the Hornwright estate at the Hornwright Summer Villa. This is also close to Charleston, on the shore of New Gad. The villa itself is filled with scrap. We find the body of a mistress of mystery here, and in the basement, we find the Hornwright estate access key card on a pushcart next to some whiskey. There is a post-war love story that takes place here, but we don't find any pre-war lore about the Hornwrights here. No matter how we got the key, once we have it, we can head to the southeastern corner of the ash heap. To find the Hornwright estate, we just take Highway 95 south. Along the way, we find numerous signs of protest. Block the Bot, written on plywood by a rusted truck. We find a ruined stretch limo, and on the side of it, Dad needs work. We find a pile of scrap metal and trash forming a ramp leading up the hillside to the Hornwright estate, almost as if somebody came through with a bulldozer and cleaned out the first floor of this thing. Sure enough, when we arrive at the parking lot outside, we find a bulldozer, and it's pushing spare tires, porta potties, and ruined Nuka-Cola machines into the private Hornwright parking lot. We find protest signs and graffiti spray painted on the walls. From the parking lot, we can head up some stairs to the north. Here we find a big medallion right above the door. Hornwright Estate. Heading inside, we see a similar lobby that we saw at the Garahan Estate. Only this one has the remains of a huge sculpture. We find it in pieces. Could the protesters have done this with a bulldozer? The elevator lobby has a back door. Here we find a large, luxurious patio. There's a tinkerer's workbench out here. Heading back inside, we find a reception terminal that has been blasted away, 1 ammo box on a countertop, and the pedestal of this ruined statue. It's in such a state that we have no idea what it was. We find the elevator in the middle of the lobby, and scribbled above it, Block the Bot. Once we have the key card, we can activate the ID card reader. But this elevator only has 2 buttons. We see that it has far fewer floors than the Garahan estate. Selecting level 2, we arrive in a large room with a lofty ceiling. There's a level above us, and we see a ghoul. Moving out from the elevator, we see staircases leading up to the next floor. But before we go out that way, we can head south to explore this one. Despite the elevator being locked for the past 25 years, this floor is in quite a ruin. To the south, we find a number of display cases, each of which has a ruined marble bust. Continuing south outside, we find a helicopter landing pad. Looks like this is how Daniel Hornwright got to work every morning. The Garahan mansion was right next to their headquarters. They just took their elevator down to the basement level of their mansion and then took a tram to work every day. But Charleston is far away from Bramwell. Looking over the side, we see the other 2 mansions off to the west, the Garahan mansion on the left and the unfinished mansion on the right. And then we hear it. Some of Daniel Hornwright's pre-war robotic defenses. We read about them in the terminals at his headquarters. He had lost faith in human security and used the death of the reporter as an excuse to automate all of the security at his business. It appears he did the same thing at home. When the southern portion of this floor is explored, we can move back north towards the elevator. Turning west, we see a room with a big sign, Hornwright Industrial, outside. Looks like this is some sort of meeting room or situation room. On the table, we see some pre-war propaganda posters for his Hornwright air purifiers, which we know actually contributed to even more pollution, and a poster promoting ballot measure 6, which was the statewide debate at the time. Daniel Hornwright had a vested interest in both issues. Heading out and moving north, we can go under the staircase, where we find a few more doors. Heading through the western door first, we find a living room. There is a staircase from this living room going upstairs, and we find a door in the northern wall. There's a duffel bag near to this door. Heading inside, we find some ghouls. This appears to be a private bedroom. We find a skill level 0 lock toolbox on a dresser, and a queen-sized bed pushed up against the window. There's a clown toy on the bedside table. Okay, that's weird. But man, these Hornwrights had a beautiful view. A large door to the south opens up to a huge walk-in closet, complete with 2 female mannequins. The Fallout 76 official strategy guide describes this as a master bedroom, so it must have been the bedroom Daniel shared with his wife, hence the large walk-in closet and mannequins. And then going through the door to the east, we find an enormous bathroom. The bath is more a pool than anything. There are lockers against the wall and big rolling carts filled with laundry. Looks like the help was in the middle of work when the bombs dropped. If we jump into the pool, which we see has a shower nozzle inside, we find 2 teddy bears having a bath. One is washing the other with soap and brushing her with a fancy brush. Cute. While heading out, we find a stim pack at the bottom of one of these laundry push carts and some chems and a bobby pin in a vanity mirror. With Daniel's room explored, we can head out. And turning north, we find a small room. It looks like a dining room, but it seems really small to me. There are display cabinets with some scrap inside, a TV in the corner, and a pretty small dining room table. This leads to the kitchen through a door to the east, and it's a pretty large kitchen compared to the dining room. Meat hanging on hooks by the window, a big kitchen island in the middle of the room, coffee and juice dispensers, food warmers, all sorts of scrap and pre-war food set out. There's a first aid kit on the wall to the south, and a randomized recipe on the kitchen countertop by the sink. From here, we can pass through an eastern door to a large walk-in larder or pantry. Here we find another refrigerator, shelves with all sorts of scrap and refuse. There's another range in here, which is weird, considering there are no fewer than 4 out in the kitchen. Back into the kitchen, we can move east. This leads to a supply room. We find big wooden boxes, scrap on a shelf, and then a hallway with a ghoul. Here we find 2 bathrooms right next to each other, and then moving east, we arrive at a proper formal dining room. Okay, perhaps the last one was like a breakfast table, where the family would sit to drink coffee and have a light breakfast. And this is the formal dining room I was expecting. Beautiful views of Appalachia out the windows there, ruined display cases and art on the walls, smoking chairs in the corner. The doors in the southern wall open up to a parlor room. Here we find a grand piano, more display cases, and plenty of seating. There's a violin in one of the display cases. Could this be a Stradivarius? If so, it's the second one of the franchise. The door to the west leads to a hallway that connects to those 2 bathrooms we explored earlier. So instead we can turn around and pass the wet bar, behind which we find a duffel bag, but it was empty in my game, to explore a storage room and wine storage to the west. That's it for the parlor, and that's it for this floor. So this is a beautiful and luxurious mansion, but it has a very different layout from the Garahan one. The Garahan mansion was built floor by floor stacked on top of each other, but this one is sprawling. Fewer floors, but each of which is pretty large. But with this floor explored, we can now take the staircase up to the second floor. We arrive to find a dizzying number of choices, staircases and doors to the east, and even more to the west. We'll head west first. Down this hallway, we find a bedroom to the north. It's small, we don't find many personal effects, and there's a suitcase in here. Perhaps it's a guest bedroom. And next to this is an almost identical bedroom. Lots of containers, a duffel bag in here, a wonderful view out the window, but a few personal effects. Continuing west, we find a third bedroom. This one is the same size. It has a blasted out terminal. We find a lot of chairs, but no idea who could possibly live here. So these 3 tiny bedrooms must be guest rooms. That, or maybe it was for live-in staff, help that would cook the Hornwright's meals and perhaps maintain the robot security. Heading out and crossing the hall, we find another room through a big purple door. This appears to be an office. There's plenty of seating, a chaise longue, bookshelves, a writing desk, display cases, an opening in the wall overlooking the parlor below, and on a table in the middle of the room is Penny Hornwright's terminal. So this was Penny's office. Not a very private one, with that big hole in the wall. After hacking the skill level 0 lock, we find 5 entries. In outgoing mail system entry number 1, from Penny Hornwright to her father, Daniel Hornwright. Hi, Dad. I got the flowers you sent to the house. They're lovely. I know you're worried about me and how I feel about Mom's death, but I can promise you that I've made peace with the whole thing. She was suffering, Dad. If she had remained alive, she would have gotten weaker and weaker until she'd be laying in a hospital hooked to a bunch of machines. What kind of life is that? She's in a better place now. And I'm okay with that. I promise this won't affect anything at work. Just give me 1 or 2 more days and I'll be back. I love you, Dad. His wife Evelyn's death hit him really hard, even harder than it hit Penelope. It was her death that he used as an excuse to focus all of his energy on the Motherlode project. Its success would prove to the world that his wife's death couldn't ruin him. In the next one, entry number 2, from Penny to Daniel. I'm getting serious reservations about this Motherlode project. You've presented me with some figures and theoretical formulas, and everything looks great on paper, but I can't really help you if you won't tell me more. I honestly don't appreciate being treated like one of your number crunchers. I refuse to simply be left out of the loop on this project, especially since it's draining our financial resources. I know this is your pet project, Dad, but you have to let me in on this one. In the next one, entry number 3, from Penny to Daniel. Dad, what's this I heard about some reporter named Bill Breyer getting shot by our security? The last thing we need right now are police investigators crawling all over our facility. As it is, we've had to suspend operations until the smoke clears from this public relations nightmare. If you've ever intended to pull a rabbit out of a hat, now might be the time to do it. Otherwise, we're looking at possible fiscal loss for this quarter. Maybe you should tell the boys over in security that this isn't the damn Wild West. We recall from the terminal entries at Hornwright Industrial that the rabbit Daniel pulled out of his hat was to use this event as an excuse to automate his security. After all, robotic security would not have made the same mistake as his human security did. But we actually can hear the very moment Bill Breyer was killed by Hornwright security. We listened to this holotape when I did my video on Sugar Grove that you can watch here. We find the holotape Charleston Herald exclusive, The Motherlode, lying on one of the desks in the Sugar Grove intelligence room.
I'm William Breyer, investigative reporter for the Charleston Herald. I'm currently standing just outside the security fencing of one of several Hornwright industrial sites that have cropped up around the area in recent months. I'm here tonight to try and get some answers about what has become known in certain circles as the Motherlode Project. Could this be the answer local mining families have been looking for? A series of new mining projects that could reinvigorate the local economy? Or, as the environmental groups have suggested, could these be a fresh set of toxic disposal sites, poisoning the ground beneath our feet? At the very least, according to local experts, the area's recent increase in seismic events can almost certainly be tied to these sites. And now I'm here to see for myself what's really going on. I've just made my way up to a small gap in the first line of fencing. The security here is intense. Barbed wire, armed guards. Feels like a war zone. I'm making my way over a small ridge and Mother of God! Ground shaking and... Oh my God. What is that?
Hey, you! This is private property. Shit, it's that reporter. Jesus. He's got a gun!
Gun? Wait, this isn't a...
So Bill Breyer was killed because Hornwright Security thought his recording device was a gun. Perhaps Daniel was right to automate his security. In the next one, entry number 4, from Penny Hornwright to Bryce Garahan. I got your message, and you're worrying me, Bryce. We've known each other since we were children, and I've never seen you come apart like this. I know that a lot is going on around us, but we need to stick together if we're going to get through this madness. I think we should speak to my father about us, Bryce. Tell him that we want to get married. I feel like bad things are on the horizon, and we need to do this before it's too late. I'll try to sneak out of here tonight, and I'll meet you in the usual place. I love you, Bryce. I always will. We recall from reading Bryce's terminal at the Garahan mansion that he was overwhelmed by everything that was going on at Garahan Mining, his mother's loss in the man versus machine competition, their looming financial ruin, having to sack all of the miners just to stay afloat, and then having those miners protest against them. The message she's referring to here is the one where he begged her to come and see him. She was the only one who could soothe his anxiety. Sounds like she chose to meet him. But where was this usual place? And in the final one, number 5, from Penny Hornwright to Yvette Wiseman. Yvette, can you try and track down my father? I was in my den at home and I heard a huge explosion. I think I'm even seeing a column of smoke rising from somewhere nearby. I tried to contact him, but he isn't answering the phone at headquarters. I want to make sure he's not stuck in the middle of all of this. If you can get through to him, have him contact me immediately. And be careful, Yvette. If that explosion is what I think it was, then the miners may have finally taken their protest too far. What could this explosion have been? Was it when the protesters attacked the Rockhound? Or when they tried to destroy one of the mega mansions? Or could this have been when the bombs dropped and she mistook the explosion as having come from the miners? Heading out of Penny's office, we can continue west to explore the room on the other side of the yellow door to the northwest. This is a large private bedroom. An American flag in the corner, a pumpkin pie on a coffee table, a television partially obscuring a beautiful view of Appalachia, don't know why you'd put a TV there, and a large bed in the middle of the room. This also has a walk-in closet, but it's considerably smaller, and a large bathroom with no pool, but it does have a sauna. The Fallout 76 official strategy guide says that this is Penny's bedroom, which makes sense as it's on the same floor as her office, right across the hall. We do find a wall-mounted safe right next to the bed, locked with a skill level 2 lock. When done, we can head out and move to the eastern side of this second floor. After looting a snare drum in a display case, we can open a door to the east. This leads to an observation parlor. There's a jukebox in a corner, more seating and a television, and some binoculars peering out of a window. But there's not much else here, so heading back out to the hallway, we can explore the room between the two eastern staircases. This is a small billiard room. Lots of billiard balls on the table, great for plastic and making shotgun shells, and a big American flag on the wall. The final room on this floor to the east is on the southern side of the staircase. This leads to a small gym. We see water fountains, tables with towels, a duffel bag and a push cart, towels hanging on a rack, lockers against the wall, and plenty of exercise equipment. We find a lot of barbells, a great source of lead for ammunition crafting, and a bunch of Vault-Tec issued power cycles that we recall from the Vault-Tec Workshop DLC of Fallout 4. Perhaps Daniel Hornwright used his connections at Vault-Tec to not only get his son enrolled, but to also get some of these cycles. That's it for the second floor. So to continue, we can take the eastern staircase to the third floor. At the top, we can turn around to explore to the west. This leads to some sort of machine shop. We find robot parts laying out on shelves and workbenches. Plenty of scrap and tools laying out. On the other side of the room, we can go through an eastern door, which just connects to the room we just came from. Lots of painted pictures on the walls. But from the workshop, we can go through a western door. Here we find some rooms with Protectron charging docks and robot elevators. The orange door to the west is locked with a skill level 2 lock, and on the other side, we find another workshop covered with all sorts of robot parts. There's a Protectron in a cart, Assaultron parts on a shelf. There's even an iBot on a table in the center of the room. This room is a great little find. We find an armor workbench, a tinkerer's workbench, and a power armor station. Then if we open a door to the south, we arrive in another little workshop. Here we find a first aid kit on a wall, a weapons workbench, plenty of scrap, and a fusion generator against the wall to the south, where we can find a fusion core. So it looks like Daniel Hornwright even employed a maintenance team to keep his security robots up to snuff. Retracing our steps back into the large painting gallery, we can take the final staircase up to the top floor. And here we find a stingray hanging from the ceiling. The walls of this room are lined with all sorts of scrap. There's a big bear statue beneath the airplane, and we can find a sniper rifle in a display case. The plane hanging from the ceiling is a Stingray. We recall these fighter jets from Fallout 4. We found their wreckage all over Boston, and we sometimes find Stingray Deluxe wreckage in Appalachia as well. Looks like Hornwright took a fancy to these things to have this pristine one on display in his own home. In The Art of Fallout 4, we learn that the Stingray was originally designed to be a private jet. It was then later adapted for military use. So perhaps that's why Daniel has one. Maybe he was a flyboy, loved planes, had his own private jet. He did have his own helicopter landing pad, or I suppose a vertibird landing pad. And we remember from the terminal entries at the Hornwright Industrial Headquarters that he was familiar with vertibirds. So perhaps he was just heavily into aviation. heading out to the deck, and oh my god, look at this view. He had a huge pool out here on the deck, and a number of hot tubs lying out, with a great view of his competitors to the west. We find an end-of-dungeon steamer trunk here, next to a wood-burning stove. We find lawn chairs, a chem cooler. He even had trees in big pots right next to the pool. And that's it for the Hornwright estate. All we can do now is admire the lovely view. But we find no sign of Daniel and no sign of Penny. But the information we do find corroborates much of what we've already learned about the pre-war mining families of Appalachia. To continue this series, we'll have to investigate the Rockhound, look into AMS, Atomic Mining Services, the third mining company of pre-war Appalachia, and then try and track down these protesters to discover exactly what their plans were and to learn what their motives were. I publish new videos each and every week, so if you don't want to miss my next one, be sure to subscribe and to click that bell notification button. If you have and you still feel like you're missing out on YouTube notifications, consider following me on Twitter at Oxhorn. I update Twitter manually with every new piece of content that I publish. I have a shirt shop with completely unique designs that you can't find anywhere else. My designs come on shirts in a variety of men's, women's, and children's sizes and in a wide array of colors. You can find them on other products as well, like smartphone cases, pillows, posters, mugs, stickers, prints, etc. So if interested, you can find a link to my shop in the description below, or you can click here. If you like what I do and you want to support me in a more personal way, consider becoming a patron on Patreon or a member here on YouTube. But more than anything, I'm just so glad you're here watching this video with me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon with more brand new videos.